Well, thanks very much for inviting me along. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the story, and then we can then do some you can ask some questions about it later. And I think my entrepreneurial background started when I was at university. I read Russian at university, which was largely because I didn't do very well in my A levels and didn't have much choice. But I did Russian at university, and and at the time there was a fashion for having these sort of dress shirts for university balls with multicoloured sleeves and so on. And I had this great idea of creating shirts with screen printed designs on the back of Tintin, Dennis the Menace, and Lenin, I think, which I did, and they were very, very popular. But I learned my first lesson about marketing, which was I should have done some market research. And when the shirt maker who was making the shirts asked me what sizes I want, I hadn't really thought about that. So I said, I don't know. I was about a size 15. I said, 15 and a half, 16. Oh, some 14-inch neck and some 17-inch neck. That'll be fine. Nobody actually has a 14-inch neck, apparently. Now, you'd have thought that the Cypriot shirt maker would have questioned that and said, by the way, Nick, that's probably a bad idea. I've never come across anyone with a 14-inch neck. Anyway, the end result was I ended up with a large box of shirts with a 14-inch neck, and I never made any money on that. Concentrated on my degree and ended up working for Glencore out in Russia, which was a fairly entrepreneurial business. I went there on my own when it was the Soviet Union, and the first week of being there, a column of tanks drove past my office, and that was the end of the Soviet Union, all in my first week. So I had to figure out a way of. I created a trading, an internal trading business within Russia. And that was great fun for about 8 years, but then it was time to come back to England. And I came back to England and thought I will start my own business. And I had no idea what I was going to do. It wasn't going to be anything to do with commodity trading. And I sat around for about 3 or 4 months, couldn't think of anything. And then someone said, why didn't you go and do an MBA while you're thinking about it? And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything better, so whatever. And then I had 2 choices. I had LBS and I had Cranfield. And LBS wanted to ask me to do a GMAT, and I to be honest, I didn't want to put myself through that in case I failed. So, whereas Cranfield, they just give you a writing test, which is that you have to write your name on the cheque. And some people failed that and they just put their thumbprint on it, but that was the only test. So anyway, went and did that for a year, which was fascinating. It was great experience. I'd say it was a really, really useful thing to do if you want to go and set up your own business. Mostly because in most normal jobs, you don't get exposed to every facet of business. And when you do get exposed to them, there's usually some expert who speaks a different language, and that sounds very clever. The MBA actually really was more of a language course than anything else, and it sort of taught me all the jargon, which I then decided back into English and realised that it's actually quite straightforward. It's mostly common sense, but it did teach me enough to bluff in most of the subjects, and it taught me where all the books were. So it was very, very good training for going in and starting my own business. And I think honestly, if I'd started my business without my MBA, it would not have been as good a business. It kind of gave me enough confidence to talk to people about financing reasonably confidently. Didn't make me an expert on accounting, though I learned most of my accounting when I hired 3 bad accountants in a row who messed up my books so badly I had to learn all about accounting and do it myself. But it did give me the confidence to go and do that. So that was So I decided to start my own business at Cranfield, and I came up with a number of different business plans. And this is a great environment in which to come up with business plans, because you have a whole load of friends around you who will tell you that it's rubbish and you'll waste all your money. It is the easiest thing in the world to shoot down a business plan, very easily, and we're all very good at that. We go, that never work. The hardest thing of all is to look at a business plan and say, I think that might work, and I'm going to give you a check for a lot of money and to invest in it. But it was a great environment for testing out business plans, and I came up with several. Growing and selling exotic mushrooms was one of them. Teaching Japanese businessmen to speak English using voice over internet protocol from San Francisco. Didn't work because there wasn't enough broadband at the time. And a couple of other bonkers ideas. And this greeting card idea. And the way I came about with this was that it was the time that the internet had just started. To be honest, I had only just started using the internet about 6 months before I started an internet company, so I couldn't profess to be an expert in the internet. But I figured that every Tom, Dick and Harry who was about 12 years old was getting investment from VCs, and at least I had run a company before. So I thought I'll do something on this interweb thing.